Every mother knows the weight of a child in her arms, the specific warmth of it, the way a sleeping baby fits against a chest like it was shaped for exactly that space. Adannaya knows that weight 5 times. The same weight, the same warmth, the same child. 5 times she held her daughter for the first time. 4 times she buried her. This is not a story about death. Death would have been kinder. This is a story about a child who kept coming back, and a mother who finally decided that this time she would go and get her. In the village of Oguta, in the time when the oil palm tree still bore fruits in every compound, and the river ran clear enough to see the bottom, there lived a woman named Adannaya. Adannaya was not remarkable in any way that the village could measure. She was not the most beautiful woman, not the wealthiest, not the most connected by blood to the royal lineage. But she loved with the kind of completeness that made people uncomfortable to witness. The kind of love that holds nothing back, that kept nothing in reserve, gives everything every time. Her husband Emeka saw it and married her for exactly that reason. Because a woman who loves like that loves her own children like that too. Their first daughter was born on a Tuesday morning when the harmattan was just beginning to soften into the rain. She arrived loud and certain, filling the room with a cry so strong that the women attending to the birth laughed out loud with relief. They named her Chidera. It means what God has written. She had a birthmark behind her left ear. Small, perfectly oval, the color of a deep bruise. The oldest woman in the compound saw it and said nothing. She simply looked at Adannaya holding her daughter with that consuming love and felt something cold move through her chest. But she said nothing. Chidera grew the way some children grow, fast and bright and hungry for everything, walking before most children her age, talking in full sentences at 2 years old, laughing at things that surprised even adults around her as though she understood more than she should. The whole compound loved her. You could not help it. She had a quality, a particular aliveness that made every room she entered feel more inhabited. Adannaya watched her daughter every day with the specific gratitude of someone who knows they have been given something extraordinary. She did not know yet that extraordinary things are not always gifts. Sometimes they are loan. 3 days after Chidera's 3rd birthday, she stopped eating. Not dramatically, not at once. She simply pushed her food away at dinner one evening with a small puzzled look on her face, as though her body had forgotten what hunger felt like. By the next morning, she was warm to touch. By evening, she was burning. Adannaya did not sleep that night. She sat beside her daughter and held her small hot hand and talked to her, telling her stories, singing the songs Chidera loved, refusing with every part of herself to acknowledge what her body already knew. The healers came. The dibia came. Herbs were burned. Prayers were spoken to every ancestors within calling distance. Chidera looked at her mother once near the end. Clearly, fully present, the fever lifting for just a moment, and she smiled. Not the smile of a sick child, the smile of someone who knows something, the smile of someone who had just remembered an appointment they had forgotten about. then she closed her eyes and did not open them again. They buried Chidera on Thursday. Adannaya did not cry at the burial. She had already used everything she had during the 3 days of fever. She stood at the graveside like a woman made of something heavier than bone, like grief had replaced everything inside of her with stones. The eldest woman in the compound stood beside her, still saying nothing, but watching. 11 months later, Adannaya was pregnant again. The compound celebrated carefully with the specific restaurants of people who have recently learned that joy can be taken back. The baby came on Tuesday morning when the harmattan was just beginning to soften into the rain. She arrived loud and certain. The oldest woman pushed through the cycle of women around the new baby, leaned in close, looked behind the baby's left ear. There it was, small, perfectly oval, the color of a deep bruise. The exact birthmark in the exact location. The eldest woman straightened up, met the eyes of the other elder women in the room across the baby's head. A silent conversation happened in that look, the kind that has no word, because the words are too heavy to say out loud in a room where a mother is holding her new baby daughter with tears of joy running down her face. Adannaya looked up from her baby and saw the chest. A silent conversation happened in that look, the kind that has no word, because the words are too heavy to say out loud in a room where a mother is holding her newborn daughter with tears of joy running down her face. Adannaya looked up from her baby and saw the eldest woman's expression. "What?" she said. "What is it?" The eldest woman smiled, the careful smile of someone choosing love over truth in this particular moment. "Nothing," she said. "She is beautiful." They named her Chidera after the first one, as people do. She had the same laugh, the same hunger for everything, the same particular aliveness that filled every room she entered. She walked early, talked early, laughed at things that surprises the adults. And 3 days after her 3rd birthday, she stopped eating. I will not make you carry the 3rd death in full, or the 4th. Just know that each time, same Tuesday morning, same harmattan softening into rain, same birthmark behind the left ear, same laughter, same early walking, same particular aliveness, same fever at age 3, same smile near the end, same Thursday burial. By the 4th burial, Adannaya did not go to the graveside. She sat inside her room with the door closed, and she did not speak for 4 days. Emeka sat outside the door those 4 days, not speaking either, just present, the only thing he had left to give her. The eldest woman came on the 4th day and sat beside Emeka outside the door. And finally, she told him what she had known since the first birth. The child was an Ogbanje, a spirit child, born into the human world not to stay, but to visit, to collect love, to be loved completely, and then return to the spirit world, taking that love with it like a harvest. Before birth, before any Ogbanje enters the human world, it makes an agreement with the spirit world. It buries a sacred object somewhere in the earth. A stone, a shell, a piece of something ancient. This is called the Iyuwa. The Iyuwa is the chain that pulls the child back. As long as it exists, the child cannot stay. No matter how much it is loved, no matter how desperately the mother holds on, when the time comes, the Iyuwa calls and the child answers. The only way to break the cycle is to find the Iyuwa and destroy it. But the Ogbanje buries it in the spirit world, not the human world, in the place between, the threshold, the boundary between what is alive and what is not. No living person can go there and return unchanged. Most do not return at all. When Adannaya emerged from her room on the 5th day, she was not the same woman who had entered it. The woman who entered that room still believed that loving something hard enough could keep it. The woman who came out understood that some things are kept by other means. She went directly to the eldest woman's compound, sat across from her and said, "Tell me everything." The eldest woman told her everything: the Iyuwa, the threshold, what finding it would require, what entering the boundaries between world would cost, what came back from that place and what did not. Adannaya listened without interrupting. When the old woman finished, Adannaya sat in silence for a long moment. Then she said, "I have buried the same daughter 4 times. I have held her. I have named her. I have learned her laugh 4 times over. I have sat beside her fever 4 times. I have placed my hand on 4 small graves. Tell me where the threshold is." The eldest woman looked at the mother across the lampstand and told her, "The threshold was not in the evil forest. It was not in the river, not in the hills, not in any place that required a long journey. It was in the compound itself. Beneath the iroko tree that has stood in the center of their compound since before anyone alive could remember." The eldest woman said, "At midnight, on a night when the moon was completely absent from the sky, the root of the iroko tree opened. Not visibly, not dramatically, just a space between the roots that was not there in daylight. A gap in the world. An opening that smelled of deep earth and something older than deep earth. The instructions were precise. You enter alone. No one can accompany you. The threshold only opens for one living person at a time. You do not speak once you are inside. The things that live in the threshold are drawn to the sound of living voice. Speaking is an invitation. You do not eat or drink anything offered to you. What sustained the dead destroyed the living. You carry white chalk, nzu, on your skin, drawn on your face and hands. It tells the inhabitants of the threshold that you are living and have not come to stay. Without it, they will not distinguish you from the newly dead arriving for the first time. You have until the first cock crow before dawn. If you are still inside when that sound reaches the threshold, the opening closes and it does not reopen for the living." Adannaya listened to all of this. Then she went home, drew the Inzu marking on her own face and hands from the memory of what she has seen the Dibia do, sat beside Emeka and held his hand for a long time without speaking. He did not ask her where she was going. She did not tell him. At midnight, she walked to the iroko tree. The gap was there, just as the eldest woman had described. A space between the roots that had no business existing. A cold blue light from somewhere below that had no source she could name. She lowered herself into it. The threshold was not what she expected. She had expected darkness, terror, something that announced itself as the boundary between life and death. Instead, it was quiet. A vast underground space lit by its own cold lights. The ceiling somewhere far above, lost in grey. The ground smooth and dark like compressed earth that had never known rain. And people walking. Dozens of them, moving slowly in the same direction. Men, women, children, all of them with the particular quality of people who are no longer in a hurry about anything, who have released the urgency of living. None of them looked at her. The chalk was walking. She moved against the flow of them, pressing close to the walls, looking for what the eldest woman had described. A child sitting alone, not walking with the others, sitting apart, waiting. Ogbanje's children, the eldest woman had said, do not move through the threshold the way the dead do. They wait near the entrance because they know they are going back. They always know they are going back. They sit near the entrance and they wait to be born again. Adannaya moved through the cold blue light looking at every face until she saw her. Chidera, the same face, the same small hands, the same birthmark behind the left ear catching the cold blue light. And in her hands, a small smooth stone, perfectly oval, dark as deep water. The Iowa. The child was turning it over and over in a small finger, not playing with it, not examining it, just holding it. The way you hold something that belongs to you so completely, you have forgotten it is even there. Adannaya pressed herself against the wall. Her heart was making a sound she was afraid the dead could hear. She could not speak. The rule, she could not call her daughter's name. Could not say, Chidera, it is me. It is your mother. I have come to bring you home. She could only move towards her. Slowly, through the cold light, past the moving figure who did not see her, towards the small girl sitting alone against the wall, turning a stone over in her hand. 3 steps away, Chidera looked up, directly at her. The child's eyes were the same, completely the same. That particular aliveness that had filled 4 different rooms, looking at her mother across the boundary between life and death, with an expression that broke something open in Adannaya's chest. Because the expression was not surprise. It was not fear. It was not recognition. As though she had been expecting her. As though she had been sitting there, waiting not just for the next birth, but for this. She could not speak, so she did the only thing available to her. She held out her hands, open, palms up, the shock marking on them catching the blue light. The universal language, older than words, older than any threshold or spirit word or sacred covenant. A mother's open hands saying, "Give it to me." The child looked at the stone in her own hands, turned it over once more, and then looked back at her mother. What passed across that small face in that moment? I did not have words adequate to it. It was not a child expression. It was something older than the child. Something that had made this agreement before this child existed and understood exactly what breaking it would mean. It was grief. Not human grief, something larger. The grief of a spirit releasing a covenant it had kept across lifetimes. The child placed the stone in her mother's hands. The moment the stone touched Adannaya's palm, she felt it. A warmth, then a vibration, then something that felt like a sound but was not a sound, more like a frequency. The resonance of a covenant straining against its own dissolution. And somewhere above them, somewhere in the living world above the threshold, the first cock crowed. Adannaya felt it before she understood it. The cold blue light flickering, the ground beneath her shifting slightly, the figures around her beginning to move differently, faster, purposeful, as though a signal had been given. The threshold was closing. She looked at her daughter. The child had not moved, was watching her with those ancient eyes. Adannaya closed her fist around the stone and ran. 3 steps from the gap, it healed. Not slowly, not with warning. One moment the gap was there, cold blue light bleeding through. The roots of the iroko tree visible at its edge, the living world on the other side. The next moment, solid earth, as though the gap had never existed, as though she had imagined the whole thing, as though the tree had simply decided that she had been here long enough. Adannaya pressed both palms flat against the sealed earth above her head. Pushed. Nothing. Pushed again, even harder. The EO was still clenched in one fist. Her shock marking now almost completely worn away. The cold blue lights of the threshold flickering around her like something deciding whether to go out entirely. The earth did not move. The tree did not care. She became aware of the silence first. The figure. The dozens of slow-moving dead who had ignored her the entire time she had been inside, who had walked past her unseen, uninterested, bound forever the dead go, had stopped, every single one of them, and turned to look at her. The shock. Without the shock, she was no longer invisible to them, no longer passing as something that did not belong to the living world. She was just a woman, standing in the land of the dead, with a heartbeat, the only heartbeat in the entire threshold, and every dead living thing in that space could hear it. They did not rush towards her. That was the worst part. They simply began to move in her direction, all of them, with the unhurried certainty of things that know they have already won, that know the only exit is sealed, that know she has nowhere to go and they have forever to get there. Adannaya pressed her back against the sealed earth ceiling and looked at the cycle of the dead slowly closing around her. Her mind was doing the only thing mind do when the body has no option left. It was counting. How many of them? How far away? How many steps until they reached her? None of this number helped. Then one of them spoke, not with a voice that belonged to any living language, with something that bypassed her ear entirely and arrived directly in her chest. A pressure, a vibration, a meaning without sound. You are not supposed to be here. She knew that. What you are holding does not belong to the living world. She knew that too. Give it back. She looked at the iroko in her fist, felt it pulse against her palm. Warm, alive in a way nothing else in this space was alive. She thought of Chidera's face when she had placed it in her hands. That expression, ancient knowing, the grief of a spirit releasing something he had kept across lifetime. She closed her fist tighter. No! She did not say it out loud. She could not. The rule, no speaking, still held even now, even here, even surrounded. But she said it with everything else. With her closed fist and her squared shoulder and the specific set of her jaw that Emeka would have recognized from across the room. The figure stopped moving, as though her refusal was something they had not calculated for. As though the living who ended up in that place were not usually this stubborn. Then the root came. Not the root of the iroko tree above, something else. The root of the threshold itself. Thick, dark tendril pushing through the earth walls of every side, moving with the deliberate purpose of things that have done this before, that know exactly how to hold a living thing in a place it was not meant to stay. The first one caught her ankle. Cold, the specific code of things that have never known warmth, the code of depth earth that the sun has never reached. She pulled against it. It tightened. The second caught her wrist, the one not holding the iroko, wrapping around it with a patience that was almost gentle, almost careful, like something that did not want to damage what it was collecting. She pulled against that too. It held. A third caught her other ankle. A fourth wrapped around her waist. She was not being hurt. That was the particular horror of it. She was being kept, held in place with the careful deliberateness of a collector adding something to a collection, of a space that had decided this particular living woman, this particular heartbeat was too interesting to release. The threshold was making a cage out of itself, and Adannaya was the one inside it. Above the ground, the world was going about its business. Bird, morning light screeching across the compound, the smell of cooking fire from neighbor's compound. Emeka had not moved from the base of the iroko tree since dawn. He sat with his back against the back and his eyes on the ground between the roots, and he waited. The eldest woman had come at first light, had taken one look at the sealed roots and the absence of Adannaya, and had sat down beside him without a word. By midday, the tree had not opened. By evening, the eldest woman's hand was shaking, not with age. The tree has her, the eldest woman said. Emeka did not respond. He had understood that much of his own. How long? He started. I did not know, she said. I have never known anyone who went in after a cock crow. The specific silence of that sentence filled the entire compound. Never known anyone, meaning no one had survived in it to tell her. Emeka pressed his forehead against the back of the iroko tree and spoke to it. Not a prayer, not a plea, something rawer than both of those things. The specific language of a man talking to whatever has taken his wife because there is nothing else left to do. She went in for our daughter, he said quietly, against the back. She went in carrying nothing but shock and a lamp, and the kind of love that does not ask whether something is possible before it tries. You have had that long enough. The tree did not respond. Trees never do. The eldest woman spent the night consulting. Not the dibia of their village. This was beyond what the local dibia has ever encountered. She sent a young man running her dogs to the village of Obunike, 2 hours on foot, where an old man lived, who was said to know the threshold better than any living person, who was said to have entered it once himself and came back different. He arrived at the compound before dawn, walked directly to the iroko tree without being told where it was, placed both palms flat against the back, closed his eyes, stood there for a long time, long enough that Emeka started to say something, and the eldest woman put her hand on his arm. Finally, the old man opened his eyes. She is alive, he said. Emeka's breath left him in a single sound that was not quite a word. The tree has caged her. The threshold is using her heartbeats to sustain itself. A living person trapped inside feeds the threshold, makes it stronger, more permanent. The longer she stays. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. What do we do? Emeka said. Not a question. A statement of absolute readiness. Whatever the answer was, he would do. The old man looked at him for a long moment. The tree opened for her because she came with the right marking at the right time, with the right intention. It will not open for force. It will not open for grief. It will not open for love alone. It will only open for appeasement. The threshold must be given something it values more than what it is holding. And what it is holding, he said quietly, is a living heartbeat. The silence after that sentence was the heaviest silence of the entire night. So what do we give it? The eldest woman said. The old man looked at the iroko tree. Blood appeasement, given willingly at the base of the tree at exactly midnight. The blood of someone connected by blood to the one inside. Husband, parents, sibling, poured directly onto the roots with the specific words of release spoken in the old language. The threshold trades. It has always traded. You give it willingly, blood from the living. It releases the living it is holding. But the word must be exact and the intention must be completely clean. No fear in it. No hesitation. The threshold reads intention the way you and I read faces. Any fear in the blood giver, and it takes them too. Emeka rolled up his sleeve before the old man finished speaking. Tell me the words, he said. Midnight came. The compound was empty of everyone except the three of them and the tree. Emeka knelt at the roots. The old man stood behind him, speaking the word of release in a language so old it had no name. A language that predated the village, predated the kingdom, predated perhaps even the tree itself. The word did not sound like language. They sounded like the earth exhaling. The small blade the old man had brought caught the torchlight once. Emeka did not flinch. The blood fell onto the roots of the iroko tree, and the moment it touched the wood, the tree groaned. Not the groan of wound in winds, the groan of something that has been holding something tightly, beginning to consider letting go. The old man's word grew louder, not shouting, more like frequency increasing, like a sound finding its proper volume. The root at the base of the tree began to move. Slowly, reluctantly, the way a fist unclenches when the thing it has been holding is finally acknowledging as too valuable to keep. The gap appeared. First, a hairline, then the width of a hand, then wide enough. Below ground, the roots released her one by one. The tendril at her wrist first, uncurling slowly, almost reluctantly, withdrawing back into the earth walls with the sullen quality of something that knows it has been outbid. Then her ankle, then her waist. Adannaya stood in the center of the dissolving cage and looked up at the gap reappearing in the ceiling above her. The dead figure around her had stepped back. We were watching her, still with that patient, expressionless attention, but making way. She looked at the Iyuwa in her fist one last time. Still warm, still pulsing, still hers. She looked once more at the figure around her, the patient dead in their cold blue lights. And somewhere in the crowd, she found a small face watching her from between two larger figures. Shidera. Still watching, still with those ancient knowing eyes. The child raised one small hand, not reaching, not asking to be taken, just waving. The specific small wave of a child who understands something an adult does not yet. Who knows that this is not goodbye? Who knows what is coming even if her mother does not yet? Adannaya pressed her fist against her chest, the fist holding the Iyuwa, the fist holding the keys to her daughter's permanent arrival, and held it there for one moment. The only thing she could give her that was not words. Then she grabbed the root edge above her and pulled herself through. She came through into the compound like something being born. Gasping, hands and knees on the drying ground, the iroko tree sealing silently behind her as though it had never opened at all. The first thing she felt was warmth. Real warmth. The specific warmth of a world that has a sun in it, that she has not felt since she descended. The second thing she felt was hands. Emeka's hand on her face, in her hair, the specific grip of someone who had been waiting to hold something he was not sure would get to hold again. She opened her fist, the Iyuwa in her palm. Dark, oval, still warm. Emeka looked at it, then at her face. She nodded once. The eldest woman was already moving towards the grinding stone. Place it on the flat grinding stone in the center of the compound. Picked up the heavy wooden pestle and brought it down. The stone did not break the way stones break. It broke the way a silence breaks, with a sound that was not quite physical, a frequency that moved through the compound like a breath left out after years of being held. Then it was powder, fine and dark on the grinding stone. The eldest woman scattered it into the wind. 7 months later, Adannaya gave birth for the 5th time on a Tuesday morning, when the harmattan was just beginning to soften into the rain. The baby arrived loud and certain. The eldest woman pushed through to the front, leaned over the newborn, looked behind her left ear. Clean. The skin behind her left ear was smooth and unmarked and completely clean. The eldest woman straightened up, and for the first time since the first birth, she smiled. A real one, unguided. The smile of an old woman who had carried a secret for years, finally being allowed to put it down. Adannaya looked up from her daughter. Is she? She is here, the eldest woman said. She is only here. Adannaya held her daughter, and for the first time in 5 births, she cried. Not from grief, from the specific overwhelming relief of a woman who fought the spirit world for her child and won. They named her Adaeze, not Chidera this time. Adannaya said, this one deserves her own name, not the name of anyone who came before her. Her own name for her own life. Adaeze grew up knowing nothing of what her mother had done. Nothing of the threshold or the cold blue lights or the stone turned to powder on the grinding stone had done. Adannaya never told her. Some things a child does not need to carry. The eldest woman told me this story the year before she died. She was 107 years old, and she told it the way very old people tell things they have carried longest, carefully, completely, leaving nothing out, as though the telling itself was the final thing required of her. She said, Ogbanje are not evil. They are not demons. They are not curses sent by enemies. They are spirits who love the human world so much they cannot stay away from it. They kept returning to it across the boundaries of death because whatever they find here, warmth, love, and weight of a body, the sound of a mother's voice, is what they dying to come back to. The tragedy is not that they come. The tragedy is that they cannot stay. Unless someone who loves them enough goes and gets them. This story has been told by Igbo grandmothers for longer than living memory. They tell it to their daughters, not as a warning, not as a horror story, as a love story. The most complete kind, the kind that crosses every boundary, that follows the beloved into darkness, that opens its hand in a place where no living person should be standing and say, give it to me. I will not live without you. This has been Whispers of the Forbidden, where some stories were never meant to be told, but needed to be.